to notice the silent stop. It wasn't bad exactly, just odd, like wet stone and something faintly metallic. She shook off the unease and kept walking. It was just a forest after all. Something moved across the trail ahead, quick and low to the ground. She froze, her flashlight aimed at the spot, but there was nothing there. Her heart started pounding. Probably a deer, she muttered under her breath, more to hear her own voice than anything else. She kept walking, faster now. Another few minutes passed, and the trail started to climb again. She could see the faint outline of the fire lookout through the trees, a jagged set against the light of the sky. Relief flooded her. She wasn't lost. She'd make it there, take a picture as proof, and head back before it got too dark. Then she heard it, a low guttural sound, almost like a growl, but too deep and wet to be an animal she could identify. It came from somewhere behind her. She whipped around, the flashlight beam darting over the trail and the trees. Nothing. But the sound came again, closer this time. Her chest tightened. She started walking fast, but trying not to run. Running would make her panic, and panic would make her clumsy. It's just in your head, she told herself. You're spooking yourself. But then the footsteps started. At least she thought they were footsteps. They didn't sound quite human, more like something heavy dragging through the underbrush. But they matched her pace. Every time she sped up, they did too. Her flashlight caught movement to her left, a flat, something pale against the shadows. She turned toward it, and that's when she saw it, just for a second. It was crouched low, halfway behind a tree, but its outline was wrong. Too tall, too thin, and its eyes, just sure it had eyes, reflected her flashlight like an animal's, but brighter, almost white. Donna didn't scream. She didn't even think about it. She just ran. The fire lookout was close, maybe 50 yards, and she sprinted for it like her life depended on it. The sound behind her grew louder, the dragging noise mixed with cracking branches, and that awful growling. She reached the lookout and bolted up the rickety wooden steps. Her legs burned, and her chest felt like it might explode. But she didn't stop until she was inside, slamming the flimsy door behind her.
Hey, the story is by Donovan Gray. You guys check out his channel. He's awesome.
And shone her flashlight through the slats of the walls. Nothing. For a long waiting for something to happen. But the woods were quiet again. After a few minutes, she started to think she might have imagined the whole thing. The light outside was almost gone, and she knew she couldn't stay up there all night. She looked empty, just a dark tunnel through the trees. She forced herself to move, one shaky step at a time, flashlight aimed straight ahead. The walk back felt endless. Every snap of a twig made her flinch, but nothing followed her. When she finally reached the main trail and saw the gravel path leading back to her car, she almost cried. She didn't stop until she was in the driver's seat, doors locked, engine running. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the wheel. She told Mike about it the next day, but he just laughed and said, "You probably scared yourself. The woods can mess with your head, you know." Donna nodded, but she didn't really believe him. The thing she'd seen, that flash of something pale and wrong, wasn't her imagination. She hasn't been back to that trail since. Sometimes she thinks about going, just to prove to herself she could. But then she remembers the sound it made, that deep, wet growl that still makes her skin crawl, and she decides against it. In 1996, while I was serving as a police officer with the Metropolitan Police Department at the time, and on this day, my schedule had me on the midnight shift from 11:30 p.m. until 7:30 a.m. Monday morning. The district I patrolled was often in turmoil, which often meant a hectic workload. I was assigned to patrol a particular sector, which meant that I was responsible for all service calls, unless a unit closer officer could respond faster, or if the situation called for backup. Around 4:30 a.m., dispatch informed me of a report from two separate individuals claiming they had been out for early morning jogs before work and had been chased by some sort of wild man in Rock Creek Park, which is located in northwest Washington, D.C. They described the man as very strong, effortlessly keeping pace with them, but moving through dense foliage, all the while growling when he neared them. They remarked that the man appeared excessively hairy, even on his face. However, what seemed most strange to dispatch were two details. First, both witnesses insisted the man was clothed in what looked like fur. Second, they did not mention seeing him wearing shoes, despite the rough terrain. Both individuals had called from separate locations within minutes of each other, providing near-identical descriptions. This prompted me to request any additional information from dispatch, but none was forthcoming. While officers sometimes encounter prank calls, particularly at such late hours, the consistency of these reports merited attention. After notifying dispatch of my plans, I proceeded on foot into Rock Creek Park, soon joined by another officer named Larry, who also had details from dispatch about earlier calls concerning a wild man in the park. Despite our initial skepticism, the parallels in the witness accounts warranted a cautious investigation. Rock Creek Park is expansive, with dense woodlands and streams making any search challenging, especially at night. To avoid unnecessary disturbance, we approached without headlights, using spotlights judiciously. Officer Larry began searching from the south toward the last known location of the suspicious person. About 30 minutes in, we heard movement in the woods and advanced with spotlights under the near full moon. Initially, the figure resembled a large animal on all fours. However, as we drew closer, it became evident that this was not an animal at all. The figure had a human head and upper body, with features similar to those described by the witnesses, and seemed unclothed. At this point, one might wonder why we hadn't drawn our firearms. There are several reasons for this restraint: avoiding escalations, preventing unnecessary use of force, and the likelihood of exacerbating a potentially dangerous situation. As we approached the individual, who was agitated and growling, we tried to communicate. Officer Larry, a military veteran, recognized signs of instability. The suspect was unresponsive to our attempts at verbal engagement. Although it was a tense situation, backup arrived within 10 minutes. Now, with a total of 6 officers on the scene, we established a perimeter and engaged the individual. So there we were, the 6 of us encircling this hulking figure that just didn't fit any normal description. It wasn't until Officer Martinez, who had a knack for tracking and wildlife, whispered to the rest of us, "Guys, I don't think we're dealing with a person here." We all paused, the absurdity of the situation hanging thick in the air. Slowly, hands raised in a calm gesture, speaking gently. The creature's eyes tracked him with a mix of curiosity and caution. As the dawn began to break, the light revealed more than our flashlights could. The creature before us was massive, easily over 7 feet tall. Its fur, a deep brown that seemed to blend with the forest, covered it completely. The face, though partially human-like in structure, had features that were off, too broad, a nose too flat, and eyes that held an intelligence we couldn't quite grasp. The realization hit us all at once. We weren't dealing with a deranged individual or a wild man. We were standing meters away from what could only be a Sasquatch. It was as if all the legends and stories had come to life in front of us. The standoff lasted only a few more minutes before the creature turned and disappeared into the underbrush, moving fast enough to shock us with its speed, and also with an unnerving silence. We were left there, stunned, none of us daring to chase after it. The radio crackled to life. Dispatch was asking for an update, but what could we say? We hadn't apprehended a suspect. We had encountered a myth. Officer Larry finally spoke up. "Dispatch, this is Unit 22. The individual is no longer a concern. Appears to have left the park." There was a collective, unspoken agreement to leave out the unbelievable truth. As we left the park, the sun fully rising, We carried with us a story that we knew no one would accept at face value, a story that would stick with us for the rest of our lives. I've been listening to your reports and am particularly interested in those on winged creatures. Hearing them has taken me back to an experience from my childhood in Oklahoma. The story might seem outlandish, but perhaps you could shed some light on what I encountered. Growing up, camping was a staple activity for my family. One hot summer, we set up camp at Keystone Lake near Sand Springs, Oklahoma. To escape the sweltering heat, we'd either swim in the lake or relax under the shade of trees. One afternoon, my sister emerged from the lake, panicked, claiming something had grabbed her ankle while she was swimming. She later described it as feeling like hands. My mother settled her down and brushed off her tears, telling her it was probably just a fish or aquatic plants. It took her a while, but she finally settled down. That evening, after we had eaten, my parents chatted with another couple from the adjacent campsite, while my sister and I played frisbee on a grassy area. As darkness fell around 9 p.m., we started back toward our tent, positioned near a dense stretch of woods by the lake's shore. Approaching our campsite, we detected a strange, sweet, fruit punch-like odor. I remember it vividly because I loved fruit punch at that age. Fireflies flickered just above the ground, mingling with tiny bugs in the air. We tried to catch a few as we walked. Passing a large oak on our way to the tent, an eerie silence enveloped us. The usual sound of the summer crickets ceased. We stopped and peered into the woods before a peculiar swooshing noise grabbed our attention from behind. It resembled the sound of several bed sheets flapping together rapidly, accompanied by a muffled popping. Then we heard a thud against a nearby tree trunk and heavy breathing from above. My sister was the first to look up. Her scream of, "Oh God," sent a chill down my spine. I hesitantly raised my eyes and saw a dark, humanoid figure with large bat-like wings enfolded around its body, hanging from a tree limb right above us. We stood there totally in shock, and time seemed to stand still until my sister ran toward the tent in a frenzy. I hastily followed and might still be standing there if she hadn't snapped us out of it. Reaching the tent, we found our parents waiting, stirred by the commotion. My mother grabbed onto me, desperate for an explanation that we could barely get out. My sister and I were desperately trying to explain what we saw. My voice shook as I spoke, and I could tell my parents were struggling to believe us. The look on their faces was a mix of concern and disbelief. They tried to give us good explanations, suggesting it could have been an owl or a heron, but we knew it was neither. Owls don't have bodies that big, and herons don't hang upside down from trees. And that's when we heard the noise again, that swooshing sound, like heavy fabric caught in a gust of wind. My dad decided to check it out, flashlight in hand. He stepped out, and he zipped the tent up quickly behind him, telling
always made spaghetti on Wednesdays. The sauce would simmer all day, filling our little house with the smell of basil and oregano, and Dad would come home from the construction site with dirt under his nails and hunger in his eyes. But tonight, something's different. Dad's hands won't stop shaking. He hasn't touched his food. The meatballs, Mum's specialty, sit untouched in the thick red sauce. My little brother Tommy keeps shooting glances at Dad's plate, probably wondering if he'll get the leftovers. Dad's skin looks wrong under the kitchen lights, pale and slick with sweat despite the October chill. You feeling okay, John? Mum's voice is careful, the way it gets when Dad comes home smelling like beer, but he hasn't been drinking. His eyes are too sharp, darting between us like he's counting heartbeats. Fine. The word comes out rough. hands are really shaking now, bad enough that water sloshes over the rim of his glass. A low sound builds in his chest, something between a growl and a moan. "John!" Mum's voice shifts from careful to worried. Dad stands so fast, his chair topples backward. "Need air," he gasps, stumbling toward the back door. His movements are wrong, jerking like a puppet with tangled strings. "Take your brother upstairs," Mum whispers. But I'm frozen, watching Dad's silhouette against the back door's frosted glass. His outline seems to ripple, stretch. The scream that comes from outside doesn't sound human. Mom moves fast, grabbing Tommy's arm. "Now, David, upstairs!" Tommy starts crying as Mom drags him toward the stairs. I follow, legs moving on autopilot. We're halfway up when the back door explodes inward. The thing that comes through isn't Dad anymore. It's huge, filling the doorframe, hunched over on legs bent wrong. Thick grey fur bristles along massive shoulders. But it's the eyes that freeze me in place. Dad's blue eyes in a monster's face, pupils blown wide and empty of anything human. Mom shoves Tommy at me. "Closet," she hisses. "Lock the door, don't come out." "Mom, now!" I drag Tommy up the remaining stairs, his small hand clutched in mine. Behind us, Mom grabs the cross from the wall. The thing that was Dad moves with impossible speed. We make it to my parents' bedroom closet as the first scream tears through the house. Tommy burrows into my chest, sobbing. I wrap my arms around him, pulling us deeper into the forest of hanging clothes. Mom's voice rises in desperate prayer, cut short by a wet ripping sound. "Daddy," Tommy whispers. "Shh." I press his face into my shirt. The closet door has slats near the top, thin strips that let in light. Let me see. I shouldn't look, but I do. The thing moves like liquid shadow through the bedroom doorway. Blood drips from its muzzle, turning Mom's cream carpet pink. Those blue eyes scan the room, nostrils flaring, testing the air. Tommy whimpers. The head snaps toward the closet. A growl builds deep enough to vibrate in my bones. "Close your eyes," I whisper to Tommy. "Don't look." The closet door splinters inward. Tommy screams. I shove him behind me, lunging for Dad's hunting rifle mounted on the closet's back wall. My hands shake as I grab it, finger finding the trigger like Dad taught me last hunting season. The shot is deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet hits the thing's chest. No effect. I fire again. Each impact just makes it angrier. The rifle clicks empty. The monster keeps coming. The next moments are lost under deeper, darker noises, ripping fabric, cracking bone, the wet tear of meat. Something hot splashes across my face. The world goes red. I don't remember much after that. Fragments come back later, in nightmares. Tommy's hand going limp in mine. The monster's breath, hot and copper sharp. Those eyes, Dad's eyes, meeting mine for just a moment before the thing bounds away into the night. The police find me still in the closet, covered in blood that isn't mine, empty rifle clutched in white-knuckled hands. They ask questions I can't answer. Their radios crackle with reports of John Reynolds, loving father turned family murderer, last seen running into the woods behind Cedar Street. They don't mention the fur, the claws, the impossible ways human bodies can bend and break. They find Mom in the hallway. Tommy's still in the closet with me. The coroner says the wounds look like a wild animal attack. Mountain lion, maybe. But mountain lions don't have blue eyes. Don't wear the faces of fathers. Later in the station, I stare at the spent shell casings from Dad's rifle. Regular lead, useless as paper against what he'd become. I close my fingers around one, feeling its weight. I should have known about Silver then. Should have known a lot of things. But all I know, sitting in that too bright room with my family's blood drying on my skin, is that the thing wearing Dad's eyes is still out there. And someday, I'm going to learn how to kill it. The spent shell casing stays with me through 5 foster homes. I keep it on a leather cord around my neck, a reminder that regular bullets don't work on monsters. Each home is the same. Concerned looks, whispered conversations, therapists asking about my trauma. None of them want to hear about the fur, the claws, the way Dad's eyes looked before he disappeared into the darkness. Kellers are foster home number 6. Nice enough people, but they don't notice their silverware slowly disappearing. One spoon, one fork at a time, each piece carefully melted down in the garage when they're asleep. The bullets I cast are crude, uneven things, but silver is silver. I test them on stray cats first. Not proud of that, but I need to know they'll fire straight. The Keller's neighbors have a lot of missing pet posters up now. Each kill teaches me something. Trajectory, weight, the way silver moves through flesh differently than lead. The gun is harder to get. 5-finger discount from a hunting supply store 2 towns over. Small caliber, easy to hide. The owner's insurance will cover it, and I need it more than he does. Each night I clean it, load it, practice drawing until my hands move on muscle memory. The reports start in late October. 3 hikers dead in Miller's Woods, bodies torn apart. Same marks I remember from that night. Same pattern. Full moon, families, pieces missing. Has to be him, has to be Dad. I leave the Kellers a note. Thank you, sorry. They were kind people. They deserve it. Disappears. But the moon is waning and I've got a trail to follow. Miller's Woods sprawls across the northern edge of town, all old growth and shadow. The police tape is still up at the trailhead, fluttering in the autumn wind. Beyond it, broken branches and scattered leaves mark where the bodies were dragged. The trail is 5 days old, but I've studied tracking. Blood leaves traces, even after rain. The woods grow darker as I follow the signs. Broken twigs, scattered bones. The deeper I go, the more my hands shake. Every shadow could be him. Every rustle could be claws on bark. But the silver bullets press against my hip. 6 little promises of vengeance. The cave entrance appears as sunset paints the sky crimson. More bones here, scattered like breadcrumbs. The stench of rot rolls out from the darkness. This is it. This is his den. All those nights of practice, of planning, come down to this moment. I draw the gun, silver bullets catching the dying light. 1 step, 2. The cave mouth swallows me. The sound hits first. A skittering, clicking noise unlike anything I've heard before. Not Dad, not a werewolf. Something else. White flesh glimmers in darkness. Too many limbs. Too many joints. The thing uncurls from the cave ceiling like a pale spider, mouth opening to reveal rows of needle teeth. Not Dad. Something worse. I fire. The silver bullet punches through pale flesh with a sizzling hiss. Wrong ammunition, wrong monster. The creature screams, the sound drilling into my skull like an ice pick. More shapes detach from the walls, more clicking, more teeth. The gun feels very small suddenly. I run. Branches whip my face as I crash through the underbrush. The clicking follows, getting closer. These things are fast, too fast. My lungs burn as I push harder, but I can hear them gaining, feel their breath on my neck. A gunshot cracks through the twilight. Something shrieks behind me, another shot, another shriek. Down! A voice commands. I drop. A blue-white flare arcs overhead, painting the forest in harsh light. The pale things scatter, hissing at the brightness. Combat boots appear in my field of vision, attached to a man holding what looks like a modified flare gun. Crawlers, he says, extending a hand to help me up. Silver won't do shit against them. You're lucky I was hunting this pack. He's older, maybe 50, with a face that's seen too many dark places. A rack of strange weapons crosses his chest. Things that look more like science fiction props than guns. I thought... I gasped for breath. I was hacking a werewolf. I know. John Reynolds, right? Your dad. He studies my face. You've got his eyes. My heart stops. You know about my father? Kid, there's a lot you don't know about what's out there, including the right way to hunt it. He ejects a spent shell from his flare gun. Name's Marcus, and if you want to survive long enough to find Daddy Dearest, you've got a lot to learn. I stare at the silver bullets in my hand, useless against the horror I just met. There are more things like that out there. Crawlers, Wendigo, dogmen, more flavors of werewolf than you can count. Marcus checks his weapons with practiced efficiency. And they're all hunting us right back. Question is, you want to learn how to hunt them properly, or you want to end up as something's dinner? The shell casing feels hot against my chest, 5 years of preparation suddenly seeming very small. Teach me. First lesson, silver's traditional, but you need variety. Like that pack back there, UV light phosphorus rounds, each monster's got its weakness. He gestures at the darkness between the trees. And your dad? One of the most dangerous rogues in the territory. You sure you want this life? I think of Tommy's hand going limp in mine. Of Mum's prayers, of blue eyes against face. I'm sure. Marcus was through the not eating back roads I've never seen on any map. The dashboard is covered in strange devices, meters and scanners with readings I don't understand. We've been driving for 6 hours, heading deep into wilderness. The network started back in the 1800s, he explains, eyes on the winding road. Back then it was just letters between hunters, sharing information. Now we've got facilities, training programs, whole underground infrastructure. He glances at me. Most hunters come to us like you. Something tears their world apart. They go looking for answers. The truck turns onto a logging road that doesn't look like it's seen use in decades. Trees close in overhead, branches scraping the roof. Your old man's attacks have gotten worse over the years, more violent. Most werewolves maintain some human consciousness, but he's gone full feral. That makes him more dangerous. My fingers find the shell casing around my neck. How many others has he killed? That you don't need to know yet. First, you need training. A lot of hunters die in their first year because they rush in half-cocked, like you nearly did with those crawlers. The truck stops at what looks like an abandoned ranger station, paint peeling, windows dark. Marcus puts the truck in park, but doesn't get out. Last chance to back out, kid. Once you're in, there's no normal life after this. No college, no white picket fence, just the hunt. I'm out of the truck before he finishes speaking. The ranger station's interior isn't what it seems. Marcus places his hand on a scanner hidden behind a rotting desk, and the floor descends like an elevator. The subterranean facility sprawls beneath the forest, corridors carved from bedrock lined with steel and humming fluorescent lights. Welcome to Station 7, Marcus says as we pass reinforced doors and armed guards. One of 12 training facilities across the country. You'll start with basics, weapons, tracking, cryptid biology. Graduate to live hunts under supervision. A door hisses open to reveal what looks like a cross between a firing range and a laboratory. Glass cases line the walls, filled with specimens, claws, fangs, patches of fur. Bullets of different metals gleam under bright lights. A group of people around my age are gathered around a table where an instructor demonstrates bullet casting. New arrival, Marcus announces. The group looks up. Some faces are hard, others haunted. All of them have the same look in their eyes that I see in the mirror. They've all seen things they can't unsee. A girl with short black hair and burn scars down one arm steps forward. Sarah, she says, extending her unscarred hand. Lost my parents to a Wendigo last winter. You, David, werewolf, 5 years ago. She nods, like this is perfectly normal conversation. Maybe here it is. The instructor is teaching silver ratios. Pure silver shatters on impact, needs to be alloyed with other metals. The bullets I made in the Keller's garage would have exploded in the chamber. Amateur work. Here, everything is precise, scientific. Days blur into weeks. I know that werewolves aren't just one thing. There are subspecies, each requiring different tactics. Northern greys, like my father, are the most feral, strongest under full moons. Urban strains can change at will, but are physically weaker. Mixed breeds are starting to appear, combining combat courses, weapon drills, endless lectures on cryptid biology. They teach us to fight in darkness, to track by scent, to think like the creatures we hunt.
In 500 feet,
Every
turn
night
right
my muscles
onto
scream
US
that I
6
push harder.
westbound.
Each lesson brings me closer to being ready. Sarah becomes my regular sparring partner. She's faster than me, but I'm stronger. We learn to cover each other's blind spots. You're not the only one hunting family, she tells me one night, cleaning phosphorus rounds. My little sister was taken, not killed. Wendigo liked to keep food
Take
fresh.
the next
She
right
still
onto
looked
US 6
transforming.
westbound.
I think of Tommy, at least granted a quick death. Some fates are worse. The first live hunt comes 3 months in. A juvenile werewolf, urban strain,
Drive
cornered
53
in an
miles.
abandoned factory. 4 of us go in with Marcus supervising. Everything goes smooth until it isn't. The wolf is smaller than expected, faster. It gets past our perimeter. Training kicks in. I squeeze the trigger twice. Silver copper alloy rounds find center mass. The wolf goes down mid-leap, transforming back before it hits the ground. Just a kid, maybe 15. Turned, not born. Some of the others look away. I reload, remembering Tommy's hand going limp in mine. This is what the job requires. Marcus watches me with unreadable eyes. Later, he pulls me aside. You did what was necessary, but don't let the mission make you cold. The minute you stop feeling it, you become something else. More hunts follow. We work our way up through threat levels. Crawlers, nascent Wendigo, juvenile dogmen. I develop a reputation for werewolf hunts. Something in them recognizes what I am, what drives me. Maybe they smell my father's blood. Sarah and I work well together, piling up successful hunts. Others aren't so lucky. James, a quiet boy who lost his brother to a skinwalker, dies when a crawler drops from a ceiling vent. Eleanor freezes at the wrong moment facing a dogman. The training facility has a wall of photos, hunters lost in the field. The wall keeps growing. Each hunt teaches me something new. Regular rounds for unarmored flesh. Silver alloy for werewolves. Blessed brass for dogmen. Phosphorus for crawlers. UV and salt for other things that hide in darkness. I learned to craft specialized ammunition, adding my own modifications. Each bullet is a work of art, designed for specific prey. The shell casing stays around my neck, but it's joined by my own creation. A single, perfect round made from Mom's silver locket, the last thing of hers I own. I engrave it with Nordic runes for binding and ending. Blessed different faiths. Attacks matching my father's pattern. Each time I request deployment, Marcus denies it. He says, Northern Greys are apex predators. They're stronger, faster, and smarter than what you've faced. Your father's one of the worst. When you face him, you get one chance. Miss and you join the war. So I train harder, run faster, shoot better, study everything we know about Northern Greys. Their habits, their territories, their kills. At night, I dream of blue eyes in a monster's face. The call comes in at midnight. Massive noise.
It was early September of 1989, somewhere in the dense and shadowed mountains of western Montana. The air tasted like pine and the end of summer. My name's Isaac McGraw. I'm a field agent with the Intelligence Division, and I'd been in this line of work long enough to see a few things. But what I was about to encounter here in these mountains was something different. There was a reason I was called in. 3 people had gone missing in the past month. 2 hikers, a park ranger, and no sign of anything unusual left behind. The briefing was sparse, just enough to tell me that they hadn't found bodies. Just packs shredded beyond recognition, and strange tracks that didn't belong to anything in the region. The commanding officer didn't elaborate, but he didn't need to. They didn't send in intelligence for bear sightings. I was working with a team of 4. There was Hardin, a younger agent with the kind of optimism only someone new to this life could have. Sarah Reed, a quiet but meticulous former cop. And Delgado, who had been in more of these cases than he cared to recall. We'd been flown to a small clearing at the edge of the wilderness, and from there, we'd head into the forest on foot. Radio communication was spotty. Its mouth, if you could call it that, was split wide, and there were patches of fur clinging to its body like it hadn't decided what it wanted to be. I froze, but the thing just stood there, watching me. Then it cocked its head, almost like it was sizing me up. I realized it had no interest in retreating. I was the prey. I acted fast, lunging for the nearest tree, and climbed, hand over hand, gripping whatever I could find. The creature didn't move at first, just followed me with that unnatural gaze, almost as if it was amused. But then it started, one slow step at a time, claws raking over the earth as it circled the tree. I climbed higher, feeling the bark dig into my palms, tearing skin, but I didn't stop. I glanced down and saw it circling, watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. And just when I thought I might be safe, it began to climb. Its limbs twisted around the tree trunk like it was born to do it. I scrambled, heart pounding, thinking of any way out. I only had the knife in what felt like precious seconds. I braced myself, gripping a branch with one hand, and swung the knife down as it came close. I felt the blade connect, slicing through flesh, and it let out a hiss, thick, guttural, a sound that made my skin crawl. But it wasn't deterred. Instead, it seemed more determined. Its claws tore at my leg, ripping through my pants, and I felt the sting of blood. I kept swinging, kept kicking, trying anything to keep it off. The creature swiped again, this time catching my arm, its claws digging deep enough to leave me numb. Just when I thought it would drag me down, I heard something. A distant voice calling my name, echoing through the forest. I barely registered it, but the creature hesitated, its grip loosening just enough for me to kick out and scramble up a few more branches. Then came another shout, louder this time, and the thing turned its head. It leaped back down, melting into the darkness with an unnatural grace, leaving me alone, clinging to the tree. Moments later, I saw a flashlight cutting through the trees, and one of my comrades emerged, rifle in hand, eyes wide when he saw the state I was in. "We've been looking for you," he said, helping me down. "Thought we lost you for good." I didn't say much, just glanced back at the darkness where that thing had disappeared. He took one look at my torn clothes, the blood, and muttered, "What the hell happened out here?" "Something I don't want to see again," I told him, and we started back through the trees without another word. We were in Cedar Bend, somewhere you'd miss if you blinked while passing through the back roads of Wisconsin. The year was 1997, and I'd been deployed on an investigation involving some missing soldiers. Special Agent Andrew Prentice, that's me, 36, sharp enough with a rifle, and not one to be easily spooked. I'd seen enough oddities in my career to keep cool even when things got strange. I had two other agents with me, both hand-picked for their skills, not their chatter. Henry Blanchard was the quiet type, all muscle and eyes that missed nothing. The other was Ivan Marchant, a nervous man with the brain of a computer and a pocket full of caffeine pills. We'd come down on assignment to locate Private Ben Falk, a young kid gone missing 2 weeks prior. Falk's case wasn't unusual by itself, but it wasn't just him. 3 others stationed in the area had vanished over the past year, all without a trace. It's as though something was swallowing them whole. And was a place with secrets, a town old enough that half the buildings looked ready to crumble, but with enough life to make it feel uncanny. The locals kept to themselves, faces turned away as we passed, like we were bad news. We met at a rundown motel that reeked of mildew, and the peculiar quiet only places like Cedar Bend seemed to hold. The type of quiet that weighs on you. We set out at dusk, taking the overgrown trails around where Falk was last seen. The woods were dense, almost oppressive, with trees that stretched tall and packed tightly, casting shadows even in daylight. Blanchard led, Ivan muttering something about compasses and maps, while I scanned the surroundings, feeling a strange pull in the air, like static before a storm. A few miles in, we reached a clearing where an old hunting cabin stood. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, paint peeling off in strips, the wood a rotting, sickly color. The only oddity was a pile of bones out front, animal from the look of it. Blanchard frowned, and Ivan murmured something about the alignment of the bones. We moved on. No sense in staying out in the open. As night fell, the woods shifted, speed of an animal, but a calculated stride, aimed directly at us. We scattered. Ivan was the first to go down, his scream muffled as the creature wrapped one spindly limb around his neck, lifting him like he weighed nothing. I fired, hitting it square in the chest, but it barely flinched. Blanchard shot too, aiming for the head this time. That got its attention. It dropped Ivan, who collapsed in a lifeless heap, and came at Blanchard with a focus I'd only ever seen in trained predators. Blanchard was tough, but he wasn't quick enough. The creature tore into him with those claw-like fingers, tearing skin and muscle as though it were nothing more than fabric. I shouted, firing again, finally catching its head in my sights. The creature staggered, emitting a strange guttural sound that vibrated the air around us. It was down for only a moment, but it was enough. I grabbed Blanchard, dragging him back, his face pale, blood pooling from deep gashes in his side. We fell back toward the cabin, a grim thought lodged in my mind. This wasn't just a creature, it was something beyond comprehension, something that played by different rules. Blanchard groaned as I patched him up as best as I could, but I knew he wouldn't last long without proper help. Then I heard it necessary. We both raised our rifles, scanning the darkness. It was behind us before I even registered the shift in air. I turned, heart pounding, and caught a glimpse of it. A shape, more shadow than substance, with limbs that seemed too long and yet too quick, moving at a sickening, unnatural angle. And it was coming right for us. "Run!" I shouted, but Boyd was frozen. I grabbed him by the arm, yanking backward as the thing lunged, its gaping maw snapping shut just inches from Boyd's leg. We stumbled through the trees, the creature's heavy steps pounding behind us, shaking the very ground beneath us. My chest tightened with each breath, my lungs burning, and yet I pushed on, forcing Boyd forward. The thing didn't make a sound other than those thunderous steps, and somehow that silence was worse than any growl or snarl. It was like it didn't need to intimidate us. It knew it already had us where it wanted us. We broke into another clearing, the moon barely visible through a break in the clouds, casting a ghostly glow. Boyd tripped, falling to his knees, and I skidded to a halt, pulling him up as quickly as I could. The thing was standing just at the tree line, watching us. It was tall, far taller than I'd noticed before, with limbs that hung low and a torso that looked almost human but twisted, stretched beyond recognition. Its face, a distorted mockery of human features, seemed to shift as it looked at us, like it was deciding what to do next. "Get up, Boyd. Now!" I whispered, voice barely more than a hiss. He scrambled to his feet, and we backed away slowly, never taking our eyes off the creature. My fingers were itching to pull the trigger, but something told me it wouldn't do any good. Suddenly, Boyd lunged, raising his rifle and firing off a burst of shots. The creature staggered, a shriek ripping from it, a noise that seemed to come from inside my skull, splitting my senses apart. It stumbled, its body jerking as if racked with spasms, but it didn't fall. "Move now!" I yelled, grabbing Boyd again and sprinting. We kept running, crashing through the underbrush until we finally burst into the edge of the river. Without hesitation, I pushed Boyd ahead, and we jumped in, letting the current drag us downstream. I turned back once, catching a glimpse of the creature at the water's edge, snarling with what could almost be fury. Eventually, we made it back to the cabin, half drenched and breathless. Boyd was shaking, but I wasn't much better. We barricaded ourselves in, guns aimed at the door, waiting for any sign that the thing had followed. But nothing happened. By morning, we packed up what little we had and left, notifying the locals that the area needed to be closed off indefinitely. When we were back in town, Boyd tried explaining it to the officials, but they shrugged it off, called it wild imaginations brought on by too many sleepless nights. I didn't bother arguing. We both knew what we'd seen, and there was no explaining it in words. Back at the station, I gave my report as plainly as possible. They looked at me as if I'd gone mad, but I didn't care. I hadn't. That much I knew. They sent me to Fort Reading in 1995 to oversee a routine supply transfer. My name is Ethan Delgado, and I've been with military intelligence for over a decade. The base was tucked away in the dense forests of Oregon, a relic from the Cold War that had seen better days. The assignment was supposed to be straightforward: catalog the remaining equipment and coordinate its relocation to more active installations. squeezed the trigger. The shot hit its mark, and the creature staggered back. "Is it down?" Reynolds asked, panting. The creature slumped against the wall, blood pooling around it. I approached cautiously, keeping my rifle trained on it. Its chest heaved shallowly. "What is this thing?" Jenkins groaned from where he lay injured. "No idea," I replied, "but it's not invincible." Suddenly the creature's eyes snapped open. It lashed out, grabbing my leg and pulling me to the ground. "Reynolds!" I yelled. Reynolds fired again, hitting the creature's arm. It released me and I scrambled back. Jenkins, despite his injuries, pulled out a sidearm and fired a shot into the creature's eye. It let out a final gurgling sound and collapsed. We waited, weapons ready, but it didn't move again. I exhaled sharply. "Is everyone okay?" "My ribs are busted." Jenkins winced. "We need to get medical attention and report this," I said. We made our way out of the building, supporting Jenkins between us. The base was eerily quiet. At the entrance gate, we found Private Lewis, the guard, lying face down. A quick check confirmed he was dead. "Damn it, people are dead." He sighed. "All right. People are dead." He sighed. "All right. I'll contact the state police." Hours later, a team was assembled to return to the base. I accompanied them, leading the way to where we had left the creature's body. When we arrived, the corpse was still there, a grotesque testament to the nightmare we'd endured. One of the officers knelt beside it. "What in God's name is this?" I shook my head. "We were hoping you could tell us." Over the next few days, the area was swarming with investigators. The bodies of Mitchell, Harris, Jenkins, and Lewis were recovered. The creature's remains were taken away for analysis. I filed my report and awaited orders. My name's Ezra Lane. They call me a scout, but officially I'm part of a specialized recon unit stationed in the New Mexico desert. Most of the time I'm tasked with routine reconnaissance, scanning miles of wasteland for anything that doesn't fit. I signed up for the solitude, to put it plainly. Spent 2 decades as a ranger before this, thought I knew the terrain. But what happened on that last assignment told me otherwise. It was the middle of a scorched July, and I'd been out in an old stretch the locals called the Devil's Backbone. Rocky, jagged, full of crevices where snakes slither and coyotes scavenge. Nothing too out of the ordinary until I got a report from command. There was a missing person, some hiker from Durango who hadn't come back. His family was raising a fuss, and they were leaning on us to take a look. Command sent me out with Mitchell, a rookie on his first solo overnight. Kid had nerves of steel, if nothing else. We trekked through boulders and dry ravines, following faint boot prints deeper than most would dare. It was like that hiker had a death wish, venturing into spots where the rocks seemed to be clawing out of the sand, twisted, ancient things, shadows playing tricks on you in every crack. Mitchell and I kept our pace, didn't talk much, just trudged. My canteen had long since turned lukewarm, the sun starting to dip behind the rocks when we stumbled on something odd, a trail of bones. Scattered deer skulls, antlers, rib cages, all of it, oddly enough, piled with care. If it was a scavenger, I'd never seen one this organized. Mitchell gave me a glance. "Some kind of ritual, you think?" he asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. I shrugged. I wasn't about to make guesses out here. Instead, we moved on, following the trail of bones, the silence so heavy it felt like it'd shatter with the slightest noise. The kid stayed quiet, walking in my tracks. We climbed a narrow ravine, steep enough to make the rocks shift under our boots, until we reached a small clearing at the top, and that's where we found it. The cave. It yawned dark and wide, old enough to have been worn by rain and wind for centuries. But the smell that came out wasn't anything natural. It was sharp, like rusted metal, something wet and decaying beneath it all. I took a step back. "We're here to find the missing guy, not dive head first into some death trap," I muttered, but Mitchell was already halfway in. He gave me this defiant look, eyes blazing with a confidence that had no place in a hole like
miles per hour.
Its head
Slow
tilted
down.
bird-like and it lunged. The thing was fast, faster than anything I'd ever seen in the wild. Mitchell raised his weapon, squeezing off a round that caught it in the shoulder. The creature barely flinched, just
Prepare
kept
to turn
coming,
left. We
claws
have a
scraping
mile.
against the ground, sending up sparks as it neared. I fired 3 more shots, one hitting it square in the chest, but it didn't fall. We turned and sprinted. I could hear it behind us, that twisted breathing, like air rasping through a hollow pipe, claws scuttling over rock as it gave chase. We burst out of the cave, the fresh air a shock to the senses,
In
but it was
1,000
on us in
feet, turn
seconds,
left
tackling
onto
Mitchell with a force that
I-469
sent him flying
southbound
against a
towards
rock.
Fort Wayne International
Blood
Airport.
spattered across the dust as he hit the ground. I didn't have time to think. I pulled out my knife and threw myself at the thing, the blade sinking into its back. It let out this noise, something raw and choked, but it whipped around and grabbed my arm with a grip like iron. Its mouth opened wider, those teeth snapping inches from my face, and that smell, rot, metal, a
Turn
hint
left
of burnt
onto
hair, filled the
I-469
air.
southbound towards Fort
Desperate,
Wayne
I reached for my
International
belt,
Airport.
found the emergency flare, and struck it. The light burst to life, bright and searing. The creature hissed, releasing me, stumbling back as the flare's red glow reflected off its gaunt, decaying features.
In 0.9
Without a
miles,
second thought, I
exit the
shoved it
highway
forward,
onto
right
State
into the
Route
creature's
930
chest.
towards New
It
Haven.
shrieked, clawing at its own chest as the flare burned bright, a sickly white smoke curling from its flesh. It staggered, tripping over itself, but it didn't collapse. Instead, it stumbled back into the cave, dragging itself into the darkness, leaving a trail of blackened, smoking flesh behind. Mitchell was sprawled on the ground, blood trickling down his forehead, his leg twisted at an ugly angle, but he was breathing, alive. I hauled him up, ignoring his groans, and we hobbled back down the ravine, moving as fast as his busted leg allowed. By the time we reached the edge of camp, the sun was finally rising, casting a pale light over the land. I radioed in, telling command everything we'd seen. I didn't care if they believed us or not.
Exit
Mitchell's
the highway
blood-streaked
onto
face and the
State Route
charred trail
930
leading into
towards
that
New
cave
Haven.
were proof enough. Command sent a team up to investigate. Last I heard, they found the cave empty, except for the pile of bones and the scorch marks near the entrance. They tried to sweep it under the rug, label it as another desert mystery, but I knew better. That cave, that creature, it was real.
The speed limit
Out
is
here
40
in the
miles
devil's
per hour.
backbone, there's no
Slow
telling what
down.
else lurks.
Drive
Just out of sight.
2.3 miles.
It was the summer of '94 when I found myself trudging through the damp trails of Glacier National Park, Montana. The word from command was to keep a low profile, but I'd been in the field long enough to know that when they said low profile, they meant don't leave anyone to tell the tale. They'd heard rumors of disappearances, bits and pieces about hikers found stripped to the bone, nothing but skeletons left as evidence. And I was the one they called to figure out what the hell was going on. Reggie Sloan and Marcus Dyer were my companions on this grim mission. Both were locals, and both had seen things that I doubted many city folks could even imagine. Reggie was a grizzled tracker, the type who could read a patch of ground like it was a novel. Marcus, on the other hand, knew the woods and the way. We didn't exchange many words. We didn't need to. Out there, silence is survival. On the second day, we came across our first clue, a campsite, deserted and ravaged. A single tent stood torn, the fabric flapping lazily in the breeze. Pots and pans lay scattered, dusted over with dried blood. No bodies, no bones, just the remains of someone's unlucky night. What do you think, Reggie? I asked, breaking the stillness that had settled over us. Reggie squatted down, his eyes narrowing as he examined a set of tracks nearby. These are fresh, he muttered, but they aren't animal, too deliberate. He looked up.
The speed limit is 40 miles per hour. Slow down.
Whatever it is, they're walking on 2 feet. Marcus sniffed the air, his eyes fixed on the darkening tree line. We're being watched, he murmured, barely loud enough for us to hear. I knew better than to dismiss Marcus's instincts. I glanced around, scanning the tree line, the shadows stretching longer as the day dipped into evening. There was a tension in the air, like a string pulled tight, ready to snap. Something was out there, watching. But it wasn't an animal, and it wasn't any person we'd be able to reason with. As night fell, we made camp in a clearing, our fire crackling softly. Reggie had his rifle laid across his knees while Marcus was sharpening his knife. I checked my sidearm. The weight of it had comforted my hand. Whatever we were facing, I intended to be ready for it. Hours passed. Quiet settled into a eerie stillness. Then, without warning, there was a noise. A snapping branch, loud enough to set every nerve on edge. We stood as one, weapons raised, eyes straining against the dark. A low rustling came from just beyond the firelight, followed by a sickly wet sound, like something slurping or chewing. "Stay close," I whispered, inching forward, keeping the fire at my back. The figure emerged slowly, its form barely
The speed
visible
limit is
against the
40
shadows.
miles per hour.
It
Slow
was
down.
hunched, twisted in ways that no human body should be. Its limbs were too long, its skin a sickly grayish tone, and its fingers, each tipped with something that looked more like talons than nails, curled and uncurled as if in
Prepare to
anticipation.
turn right in half a mile.
Marcus sucked in a breath, gripping his knife. "What the hell is that?" The creature let out a sound that echoed through the woods, a piercing, unnatural screech that seemed to vibrate through the air itself. I raised my weapon, but before I could get a shot off, it moved. Fast. Too fast for something that size. It was on Reggie before we could blink, its claws sinking into his shoulder.
Turn right
as he
at the
let out a
traffic
strident
light.
cry. I fired, the shot echoing like thunder. The creature let out a scream, jerking back, releasing Reggie. Blood soaked through his shirt, but he managed to stumble to his feet, his face a mask of pain and fury. "Fall back!"
Turn right at the
I shouted,
traffic light.
pulling Marcus along with me as Reggie staggered beside us. We moved deeper into the woods, the creature's footsteps heavy behind us, every snap and crunch of leaves a reminder how close it was. We found a cave a few minutes later, barely wide enough for the three of us to squeeze inside. Reggie was breathing hard, his face pale as I inspected the wound. It was deep, raw, but not fatal.
In
At least not
1,000
yet.
feet, turn left
That
onto
thing,
Nelson Road.
"It's not natural," Reggie muttered, his eyes wild. "It's hunting us." Marcus nodded, his face grim. "It didn't just stumble onto us. It wanted us to find that campsite." My mind raced, piecing together the fragments of information. This creature, whatever it was, had led us here, lured us into its hunting grounds. And it was waiting, just outside the cave, the sound of its breathing echoing through the night. We waited, barely daring to breathe.
Take the next left onto
Hours
Nelson
passed,
Road.
and the creature prowled outside, occasionally scraping its claws against the stone as if to remind us it was there, that it was only a matter of time. I kept my weapon trained on the entrance, every sense on high alert. As dawn approached, the sounds faded.
Prepare to arrive at your destination on the right in 0.4 miles.
We emerged from the cave slowly, our eyes scanning the trees, the ground, every shadow. But there was no sign of the creature. Reggie's wound had worsened by then, his face slick with sweat, his breathing shallow. We needed to get him out, back to civilization.
You will arrive at
back
your
to safety.
destination on the right in
As
1,000
we
feet.
started to make our way down the mountain, the weight of the creature's existence pressed down on us. The creature might not have killed us that night, but it had left its mark. A reminder that we were trespassers in a place where things older, darker, and far more dangerous than us called home.
You have reached your destination on the
I
right.
never imagined that a routine patrol could turn my world upside down. My name is Donovan Harlow, and I've been stationed at Fort Bragg for the past 5 years. As a military intelligence agent, my job usually keeps me behind a desk
Calculating.
sifting through data. But that day in 2012, everything changed. We received reports of unusual activity near an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Fayetteville, North Carolina. The place was a relic from the 70s, a crumbling structure that once housed manufacturing equipment. Command thought it might be used for illicit arms trading, so they dispatched
You will
me
arrive at your
and
destination on the left
investigate.
in 400 feet.
Lena was sharp-eyed and quick-witted, standing a few inches shorter than me, but with a presence that commanded attention. We'd worked together on several assignments, and I trusted her judgment as much as my
You
own.
have reached your destination on
The
the
sun
left.
was dipping low as we arrived at the warehouse. The chain-link fence surrounding the property.
have a tripod. You guys wait till the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Being out in Hocking Hills at the National Forest, get some good shit there. Dogman sightings, Hocking Hills, Ohio.
On December 20th, 2022, Rich and I were down investigating in an area that he calls the pit down in Hocking Hills. What we found was very disturbing. We found a deer kill unlike anything we had ever seen before. There's a dog right there. Why? You can't hold that now. It was vicious at times, and that deer wanted coyotes because of those coyotes.
That's exactly where we're going.
See, if it was coyote, now I said, if you see
way too fat.
Fried fish.
Yeah. We will do whatever it takes to get our hands on it.
Man, I see the crawfish traps in there.
Even if it means going into our duck lines during the off season to get our hands on crawfish traps.
When's the last time somebody been there?
By December. This can get a little hairy.
If you want to eat the crawfish the way you want to eat them, you need to go in there and get the crawfish traps. That's why I'm sending Goblin in first. Hold your breath. Ease on in there.
Goblin, you sure you can get in there?
Now there's a picture. I can pick out the Christmas card. There's a gator in there.
Huh?
There's a gator in there.
For real?
Yeah, guys. How big is he? He's Godzilla big. He's a bull. Like a
What are you juggling?
giant. You alright? I'll read subtitles for that. I can't fight. I can move it pretty big. I heard his tail dragging blindfold. This thing's a dragon. Is he coming out of there with us?
You know it. It's a dragon.
It's a dragon, boy.
Is this what all the fuss was about? You had?
Goblin, where are you going?
Come here, Goblin.
Look at the teeth in that thing.
Come here, take a look at it.
You go.
It takes him 50 steps to go 20 yards. The little feet are going fast, and he ain't moving.
Well, boys, I hate to tell you this. You know what this means?
Yeah, I mean, Goblin is a big weak.
Besides that, you look like Cousin Ed. It's time to debug, or in this case, de-gator all the lines. So, go back and get your crawfish traps.
Now, see you clowns later.
God, it's freezing out here. You thinking about home in the cold? No. Maybe they'll say that it's for charity and I'll stop anyway.
Thought we needed more sponges.
Well, I thought we were gonna have more cars.
Today, Corey and the kids are running a charity car wash for the church, and I've decided to throw in a helping hand. You can't have a car wash when it's freezing.
Well, it was supposed to be warmer today.
Too bad they didn't schedule this for yesterday when it was 75 degrees and sunny. How much have y'all made?
$5.
Oh my gosh. But now's the goodest time as ever to teach my kids you gotta roll with the punches. If you put it up, it wouldn't fly in your face.
It's so windy.
Because doing business outdoors in Louisiana comes with a lot of punches.
Did you do good? It looks cute.
That's not good.
Why?
Like, you can't even see what it is. Car wash needs to pop.
And her lettering cute.
No, it's confusing.
What?
Nobody's gonna stop at that.
Okay, thanks, Dad. We're gonna raise some money and we're gonna have a good time doing it. We're gonna have fun.
We're not out here to have fun. It's not all supposed to be fun. John Luke.
Willie, it's a fundraiser. Start with fun.
We need to get this sign up.
Yes, I agree.
All right, word said y'all after that. I gotta go make some phone calls.
There's a gator in there. I ain't going in this one first.
Huh?
I ain't going in this one first.
Well, what do you bring us over for anyway?
This is my counting out skiing ticket. What if we run into a gator? Hey,
Bill don't like a man sitting out on the job.
he knocked down my bird chair. Man, I came in with my
Being a hunter isn't just about whacking ducks. There are truly some mundane and tedious tasks involved.
The only time we need road crew just standing there on the shade trees.
The annual debugging of the lines is one of those tasks.
So I'm gonna get them back in here. Y'all start right here, go back.
Kind of like how people think a cop just rides around in police cars and chases bad guys.
Well, there's way more this way.
Hey, that's what there's about it, y'all.
But what people don't realize is there's actually a lot of paperwork involved.
Are you fired up about it there, Walters? I ain't going in this one.
Cleaning out the lines is our paperwork. It must be done.
I'm out of here. Watch them fire ants. Ours going in
Oh,
first.
that was a mistake. That's what I'm talking about. That's courage right there, go.
Hey. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Butters goes back.
I ain't getting some.
1, 2, 3. Gotcha. You get him?
One wall snap down, million to go. One of the positives of debugging the lines is that you really never know what you're going to find. Incoming, go.
Hang tire.
Get 3 more, you good that truck. The water rises and leaves behind all these surprises when it goes back down.
Hey, jar of pickles. This one gonna be heavy.
Oh, kind of nasty that is. Over the years, we come across things that you can't even imagine. Oh, God. That smells like pure gasoline. I can smell that from here. Those are bad.
No.
No.
Got the cow up.
Somebody call 911.
That pickle, they don't ever go bad. That's a false one.
But I can't say that I would recommend eating any of it.
I got pickle John, and I got tired today. I can't wait to get to the next one. It's just like Christmas. Boy, he had some bad Christmas growing up. We got another godly treasure. It's like Mr. Wilson from that show. Well, fine.
Are you talking about Castaway or Dennis the Menace?
Wilson!
Should have never ate them pickles.
It's good not to get bit.
What is it?
What in the world? God,
What is it?
ants, fire ants. God, get them, man.
All outdoorsmen have their nemesis.
God, leave there in the britches and got ants in his pants.
With Phil, it's the beagle. With Si, it's the mystical Black Panther. With me, it is the dreaded fire ant.
Good grief.
What is it about this blind? Every time we get in this blind, we get covered in ants.
God, go.
They strike when you least expect them, and there's no remedy. Die.
He really hates ants. So do I right now. Suckers in my boots. Yeah, scratch it. Nope. Come on. Nope. Scratch it. Huh? Come on. Nope.
I got him in the groin now.
Oh,
Down here, ants in your pants has a totally different meaning. Oh, that's where it hurts. A more painful. Die. You know what?
what?
I am sick
I'm tired.
and tired of these ants. I'll tell you something. We're going to go for a quarter mile and we're going to burn every ant hill, ant house, ant pile, ant hole, hotels,
Hotel.
Holiday Inn. Burn them all. Who's with me?
Come on, Wilson. Let's start talking.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, well, we've got a few customers. They are all related to us, but hey, money's money, even if it's family money.
This cake for her $5 a pound.
Okay, you can throw more than $5 in there, I know that.
Hey, that's for the kids.
I'll eat part of it, and a kid can eat the rest.
Y'all got any food?
Hey,
Si,
What?
you're not here to eat.
well, you're eating.
I can eat because I'm in charge of this operation.
You're in charge of this?
Not that great, but we do have a sign.
Nobody's gonna stop for a sign. Willie have not caught on to what really sells stuff, okay? You've got to have the wow factor. You gotta have something extra.
We're doing the best we can with what we got, all right?
No, look, you don't see some about? Keep your hands on high. I got your money. I've got all the money in your wallet. You gotta make a big spectacle to draw the crowd in, like a blimp, a firework.
Blimp?
We need to have one of them inflatable man, like they do at the car dealership.
A filletable man.
Yeah.
Very sleepy. Up all night, sat here in Fort Wayne, waiting to get late.
I'm sorry, I was calling in. I was calling because we received your application. Just to see if you were still in the market for a vehicle.
Yep. He's slacking at me. He must be slacking, yeah, because I got a text for that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll pick up his slack. Wednesday, you got to while you're coming in?
Probably a little afternoon. I think he said he's there till 2:45 or they're open till 2:45 or something like that.
Okay. You said Saturday?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we close at 3.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I will know that you'll be in on Saturday.
All righty, thanks.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
And then he points to where the car wash is.
Those do draw your attention. Yeah, if John Luke's doing it. Yeah, that looks good. It's like this.
Hey, you gotta bend your leg.
No, Jess, you gotta go down like this and go up and down. That would draw your attention, Willie. Oh,
That's what
man.
I'm talking about. See that? See what I'm talking about?
Well, if you want a spectacle, here we go.
It's making me dizzy.
But the point is here, hey, you need some help with your marketing strategy.
Marketing
Wait
strategy.
a minute, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Come on.
Show you what?
I found him. Look at the size of this deal, this whole thing. And he got camouflage flowers. See the trail?
There they go.
See the trail?
Uh-huh.
Move!
Okay, cool.
Those things are foul.
Oh my goodness. Look at this. I mean, they just keep coming. I mean, you talk about evil. When I was 12, I was swimming in the river. I just barely brushed up against the end top.
This is the epicenter.
This is the epicenter right here. They immediately just engulfed me. So I went to stripping clothes. I run back to the house. When I opened the door, I was unaware that my mom was having a muffin brunch. And there I am, in my birthday suit, covered in ant bites. Oh, it's we need to kill them all. We've never forgiven the ants after that. Look at there.
Ooh. Ugly game. Whoa. Oh, yeah, that's all.
Give it a love, please.
Okay, I got it.
Douse the bird.
We're going to give a new name to fire ants here.
Going home.
You think that's a deep enough hole?
Yep.
Get you some of that.
Just light them up.
Light them suckers up.
Come on, Jim.
Fire the hole.
All right, Jim.
That's going to blow up.
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I'm not dying of hypothermia.
I get it. Step back.
Okay.
Look at him to the one. Yeah.
Good.
Now that's fire ants. You
Look
see
at that
that?
running toward the top of the bushes. Look. That's the same thing they do when you have a flood or you have a fire. You know where they go?
The highest point.
Highest point. They just go to those high-rise hotels.
The tree.
The trees.
Yeah.
We need to cut those. If we abandon the debugging the blind plan for the fire ant massacre, there's a pretty good chance that my dad is not going to be happy about that. Are those trees good for anything out here for ducks?
Nope.
That's why they got to go down.
Right.
And then no more ant problem. But if there is a choice between pleasing Phil and letting the fire ants get the upper hand, I'm going to kill me some fire ants.
You want to talk to them all the way there?
We're going to torture them all the way there. Their homes, their businesses, their places of rest,
If you say so.
where they time out, where they race, where they play, where they fight. Holiday Inn. Where's my chainsaw?
Hey, this sign's
I said we should have got a bigger sign. That's all we got to work with.
not on that, it's pointing the wrong direction.
I think the wind messed it up.
No, hey, it's got to have more right to die than this.
Sign's a sign. Sign!
You got to have way more than that.
Sign, that's not a toy. Sign! Sign, you are literally almost in the street.
Hey, you got to have the way you flash it. Now, look out. Hey,
nearly drowned in a pool playing Marco Polo.
Stop. Look,
Stop!
really?
And there was a time he fell out of a tree playing capture the flag. And who can forget when he lost 2 teeth playing bingo? Never got that fixed, by the way.
He's missing a couple of teeth.
You idiot. All right, hey.
Everybody's just honking. They're not stopping.
Well, look, hey, the marketing strategy is working, buddy.
I don't think it is.
Look here.
Hi.
Don't talk about good. Hey. It's all about the money.
Si, you're going to stand right here all day and hold that sign.
Not out here.
Si.
That pickle, they don't ever go back.
I'm gonna cut this tree down, and it's gonna fall right across that little creek.
No.
I've had a chainsaw in my hand since I was about 6 years old. I know where this tree is gonna fall.
Are we gonna cut this tree down or what? Cut this sucker down?
On a day like today, when you're about to accomplish a feat of this magnitude, you will send a message to the ant world. Go elsewhere or die. Sometimes you just gotta relish in the moment. I'm making a declaration to all ants. The heavy metal is coming.
What was the last part?
I'm bringing the pain. Some teenagers play guitars, others play chainsaws.
Well, you gonna cut it down?
You know, every time we get in that blind, it's full of ants. I'm trying to kill these ants. That's the biggest ant pile in the world, right away. I'm telling you, I have chased them ants for a quarter mile. They were in these trees. Good Jim's idea.
Yeah, this is kind of a trick that always works when I'm trying to get the truth out of one of my sons.
Yeah, I thought it was dumb. I really did.
You don't say anything, you just look at him right in the eyes and go, It just kind of brings one closer to confessing.
Well, tell you the truth, I've been wanting to cut these 2 trees and move that line over here for about 10 years.
Now, that might not work for everyone, but it works for me. What's your problem?
He ate some bad pickles we found in the blind.
You mean to eat?
Oh,
Did anybody check the date on it before you ate it?
There wasn't a date. They were brown.
there wasn't but one Brian.
I mean, they were disgusting. And the smell. What about the smell?
Yes.
And like, every time he picked one up, you could just see what was left. It just dissolved into the bottom.
Where's he going?
I bet I've killed at least 50 million.
The tree's gone. No, I won't quit crying about it. Y'all crying about the tree? I was for a little bit coming across that field.
Oh,
If you move right here, Jace,
he just did that.
northeast wouldn't be too bad. Phew, not good.
Jace, get your water out. Throw some money in here. Let's wash that piece piece of crap.
Everybody knows I don't do car washes.
What?
Car washes, they're not for me. If you wash your vehicle, it's just going to get all messed up again.
And then you wash it again, just like you wash your body when it gets dirty.
That's optional. I will support my family because I love them. Do you wipe your rear end or you just let that ride down? Depends on where I'm at.
It's just gonna get dirty again.
Plus, God would move over here in the truck. So that thing could use a good hose in there. Is that your idea to have sides?
I can't take credit for that one. I'm sure Willie will. Hey, guys, stop!
It's genius. The only thing you gotta worry about. Yep.
You're gonna need a nap. Well, there's Mountain Man.
Where's he been?
Oh, I'm not cleaning that. That's for the guys. It's time for our break.
I'll go over there.
Oh, and a nice wash cars. Kids, get up. We got some work for you.
Father, we thank you for your love, for your mercy. Thank you for this good food, too. It's through Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
In business, hiring the right person for the job is crucial because the people you hire represent you. In family, though, you don't get to pick and choose. Sometimes you get lucky, like Si's crazy marketing plan actually working. Other times, the guy you asked to help on a cleaning job ends up cutting down half the forest in a fit of blind rage. In the end, you have to take the good with the bad because you can't fire family, even if there are times when you really might want to.
Yup, you ain't hungry. Sure you don't want any of this pie? You love pie, don't you?
Alright, so what do you have December 9th through 13th?
I told you, December I'm going to be home.
Willie, we have that fire coming in.
I need to get one of those cardboard stand-ups in there. And just put it back in the chair.
Okay.
It is.
Take a second.
Let's see what
This is an emergency.
Why is everybody?
It's an emergency.
So I got to do everything.
Because we're friends. We got a situation. Si is acting really weird.
It took all four of you to tell me that?
It's concerning.
Alright, get back to it. Look, telling me Si's acting strange is not something I consider an emergency. It's like telling me the sun is hot, water is wet, and Kenny G plays a saxophone.
Si acting weird is not exactly news.
This is really weird.
Does he have all his clothes on?
Most of the time.
But it's not just about that.
These are just the facts of life. So when my employees take time from their workday to come into my office and voice their concerns, well, CEO really gets suspicious.
Don't just ask me.
He's waiting until you come out of the water.
What is it?
He's waiting until you come out of the water.
I'll make a note of that. So now CEO Willie has to become Detective Willie to see if these guys are telling me the truth or if they just want to talk.
Okay, so what is he doing differently than he normally does?
Look,
Well, I mean,
he's just babbling.
that's normal for him.
It's like if a rapper went insane and got really old, and then he just started talking.
Is he like Flavor Flav weird or like
Another plug.
It's a cuckoo clock.
where's he at?
It's
Okay, good.
You need to come alive.
That's where the clock's going.
Where's he at?
The cuckoo stayed with the clock.
Okay, not with the cuckoo. Okay, where is he at?
He's actually working.
What?
Is he messing up the inventory?
I'm sure he is.
All right, I think just stop it.
Rapping may be a bit of a stretch. It just
He's
rhymes.
right.
Just work from home with people.
You hired us.
Technically, most of you are related. You came with the job.
Well, the rain started. It made us run into the jungle of Cain. We said, well, let's hop on the train. And then that's when we run into old Wayne.
Is somebody out there?
Corn.
weird.
We have an emergency situation here.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Like,
Oh, it's
how does that come on?
No,
Oh, he's on fire.
When Jace told us that Sal was acting weird, we were concerned.
Correct. You were concerned. I'm used to that.
I think he's just getting older. You know, he'll get old, they just start saying weird things. I'm not sure he's all there.
I'm convinced, isn't it?
Well, I mean, like, do you think?
He's on drugs.
No. I think we should- I think we need to take this out.
They're like everything.
That's weird.
maybe he's been exposed to some kind of weird hormone.
Wow. I mean, we're all gonna get old someday, and you know, we could lose our minds. Especially you, because it runs in your family. You better start doing crossword puzzles.
Has he been sleeping as much as
He's been sleeping an incredible amount.
Okay.
So look, guys, put this box.
Yeah.
The arrow thing.
Done.
I'm gonna put this one right here.
Okay.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the help.
Yeah. What do y'all do?
Organizing stuff.
Y'all weird.
I'll take that. Come.
Yeah, you're weird.
Right. I was gonna go back for my lunch. Ready?
No.
It's
Let me
ready.
get this other water out.
But he's never turned down any free food.
Are you in the bathroom?
Only if side joints.
I think that was just a test. We'll see.
Everybody's on their own.
Can't go back. Whatever you say.
Yes, I guess.
Wait a minute. You're breaking the lunch protocol.
That's just Davis. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm not saying.
I want free lunch.
Look, I'll go ahead and read my letter to Si first, if that's all right with y'all.
We're not reading letters. I wrote this on here.
We're just asking what's going on. It's not a letter. I thought this was an intervention. Who said it's an intervention?
This isn't an intervention.
It's not an intervention.
It's just a talk.
There he is. Surprise.
Did I forget it? Is it my birthday?
He didn't know it's birthday. It's too bad. So
It's not a surprise.
Well, is this one of them invention things?
No, it's
Yes.
not an intervention.
Just
Look, I'll
a
go ahead
talk.
and read my letter.
a stupid letter. It's blacked open. Yeah, I'd like to
So
see
let
it.
me know. We're just sitting here. We were just gonna ask you a question or two.
You just gonna
Look,
surprise? What's the surprise?
we were just wanting to know is everything going okay? You've been acting weird. Than you normally do.
You know, look, I caught a little bug this year. And look, I didn't want to tell y'all until I got better.
No.
Are you better?
Is it mental or?
No, it ain't bad.
There were some signs.
Look, I caught the music bug.
The music bug.
Yeah. Imagine it took me 68 years to get started on my music career. There it is. Right. But I look better late than never. I've been out honky-tonking at night with my band.
Yes.
That's why I've been taking so many naps lately. Hey, if you stay up to 2 a.m. honky-tonking, it's rough on me, especially at my age.
What are you, Tom back from 1978?
No, no,
It's like honky tonk singing.
Look, all of these good guys start out on honky-tonk singing. Hey, Big Brother was telling young kids, okay, follow your dream. That's the stupidest thing I've heard of. They're kids, okay? Look, you need to leave following your dreams to the old times.
He's pursuing his dream.
Hey, I play bars, I play nursing home, okay? Hey, I'll even come to a bar mission. You have to get mine.
Or who?
Nursing home?
Yeah. Nursing home is a tough gig. We're the ones who need to be chasing the rainbow, okay? So we can what? Blaze the glory.
So look, I'm not paying you all day just to hang around and buzz and hear some bright songs and sweet.
Yeah, I know. Well, I officially retired from my career.
No.
Are you really retiring or is it like you always do?
Hey, well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Man's got to chase his dream.
You better get to run it, big boy.
Well, you can't get to run.
You say you're not.
Oh, no, I'm in my prime, second boy. I'm in my prime.
That's prime.
can I go ahead and read my letter? It was been a long time.
Oh, you wrote a letter
It was an intervention letter. It's about how you.
about me?
Yes.
Read it to me, I might turn it into a song. Hang it up, Jethro.
Your life is going to have to change in the following ways. Number one.
No, let's jump, okay? I'd take that crap.
I think this is for real this time.
He's either really retired or he's really crazy.
Lord, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Well, besides actually retired, I think his career in music will be short-lived.
Why did that?
It's acting like a sentence, which doesn't sound
Great at fragments. Y'all gonna get siren. 3.21 gigawatts. I like the third. Second one. That was the best.
I don't know what y'all talking about. I've never seen it. You've never seen Back to the Future?
No. This coming from a guy who watches Air Bud and carries around the tapes in your truck.
You got it. Hey,
So if Air Bud had a time machine, you're in.
No, we're talking real stuff here, okay? Not, science fiction.
Hey guys.
What about
I thought you were willing.
No, it's just me. I need your help. Willie's birthday is coming up, and
well, hey, it was the bait and switch.
Just because it's about a teddy bear coming to life does not mean it's a family-friendly movie.
I saw this movie about a teddy bear, and it was real.
But you just chalk it up to a lesson learned.
Hey, what is this world coming to? Well, we can't even count on the teddy bears to give us wholesome entertainment. Hey, he was cussing and doing drugs and junk. Next thing you know, the Care Bears will start gangs. You know how you got Teddy Ruxpin doing drugs with Paddington?
You didn't notice the rated R?
No, I assumed it was rated PG. We got Winnie the Pooh sticking up, stores coming out. Hey, hand over the honey, nice and slow, or the piglets get it. And not only that, the stupid internet was terrible.
You watched the whole thing?
Well, hey, I don't want to waste my money.
You did. What's up?
You want to explain this to me?
Well, Willie brought these things back.
What is this?
Well, you're supposed to stand at these.
For what?
Willie said if you work standing up, it keeps the blood flowing, keeps you on your toes.
Hey, the man is going crazy. If he thinks I'm gonna stand here like a prairie dog, he's lost his mind. I ain't no prairie dog. Hey, look, forget it. You're not gonna teach this old dog new tricks.
They do this.
Hey, I changed my mind. That's pretty cool.
Slide.
Now you can bring the old dog new toys. Okay, and hey, we got one here.
Oh, this will be cool for about 5 minutes.
I like push buttons. Hey, how high does this thing go?
The sky's the limit, son.
Well, about right there.
I guess that's the limit.
Every inch that goes up, the quality of your life goes down.
Hey, this thing's for Johnny.
I'm gonna go give him a piece of my mind.
Start for me.
Stand by.
How about
E5. I'll take that as a hit.
seriously.
Morgan. I've always been a staple in the Robertson household.
What's your favorite movie's Titanic and E10? Not even close.
Nowadays, though, depending on what we play, it can be pretty hit or miss.
G5.
Yeah.
That just happened.
Right now, I'm about to get a big hit. V10.
Mid.
Right in Jeff's mouth.
Stupidest game ever invented. I would say the two of us losing.
Miss Cadenfield's anniversary is going to come.
Thank you.